Hi, and welcome to 226 St. George Street, home of the Notre-Dame-de-l'Assomption Cathedral. Beautiful gray sandstone cathedral, neo-Gothic, constructed in 1939-1940. The reason for its construction: in 1936, Pope Pius XI created the Archdiocese of Moncton, and this became the location. Why did they choose this location? Well, Notre-Dame-de-l'Assomption congregation actually pre-existed here. They started in 1914, and they tried to build a church. They got so far as the basement, some crypts, a few other architectural details, but stalled because of finances and other resources. And it wasn't until the Archdiocese was created in 1936 that the idea of building this cathedral began, and at this location. So Louis N. Godet of Sherbrooke designed it, and Ambrose Wheeler of Moncton constructed it. Handcrafted. There's film transferred to video of the construction, and the amount of hands-on craftsmanship that built this building is absolutely incredible. Very, very important beacon of religious architecture for Acadians in the region. In 1955, on the bicentennial of the deportation of the Acadians, they added so many features, like a Cassavant Brothers organ, some stained glass windows by a famous designer in France, things like that. But we're going to go inside, and we're going to see some of the interior details that are just as stunning as the exterior craftsmanship of this building. And keep in mind, in 1984, when the Pope came, this was the only other location that the Pope stopped at other than the papal visit site at Magnetic Hill. So now we're inside the cathedral, and what you see is just the result of an incredible amount of craftsmanship that is just unmatched today. You can't get this done today in the way, the attention to detail and the craftsmanship that was put into making this happen. You have the sanctuary steps have the five major orders listed to them in Latin. The floor is Belgian and Italian tile, all just hand-laid, beautiful imported tile. But now what's really cool is the stained glass windows all have icons of important events in the history of Acadians. And then as I mentioned, in 1955, as part of the bicentennial of the deportation of the Acadians, Auguste Labouret from France made these beautiful stained glass windows that dedicated to famous women in the Bible. So really, really beautiful work. If you look at these columns, these square columns, the capitals, that's the ornamental top part of the capitals, actually have scenes depicted in them of various trades and labors of early Acadians. So everywhere you look, there's just the influence of Acadian history and Acadian culture is literally built into the fabric of this building. This statue right here of the Virgin Mary, this is actually the second version, apparently. The first one that was ordered from Europe actually was sunk perhaps during the Second World War. I'm not sure what the story is, but this is actually the second one. The first one to actually make it here, but the second one to actually be made. So also as part of the 1955 commemoration, were permanent pews installed. So despite having been built in 1939, 1940, there were improvements made in 1955 that remain today. And now today, the museum, the interpretation that you really must come and see, because this is all beautiful architecture, stained glass windows, craftsmanship, but they have brought it to the 21st century. And what you get are these huge touch screens, not available right now because of COVID-19. But there are graphic depictions, digital depictions of every window. When you tap on the window, you can tap on individual elements of that window and get a history, information about that specific element. So fantastic interpretation. And there's a crypt that has a 360-degree multimedia presentation that's just fantastic that you have to come and see. So when they're open again, please come to the cathedral and take advantage of the interpretation, the modern interpretation of this beautiful building. And I'm seeing here, look at that beautiful color of the clear story. Those are clear story windows. The beautiful stained glass giving you these pastel, beautiful colors. Just the warmth and the ambience is just incredible. So here I am in the crawl space. This is actually above the central nave where all the lights are, the big suspended lights. In order to change the light bulbs, now the system is going to change soon, but to change the lights, they actually had a pulley system. And someone would have to come up here, unchain them, and use pulleys to lower that light to change the light bulb and then hoist it back up. And I can't imagine on this concave surface what it would be like to go down the side and start hoisting stuff up and having just your hand holding that expensive and delicate light on the end of a chain. But that's the way it was done and still done to some degree today. Here we are on the balcony with the Cassavant Brothers organ, the Cassavant Frères from St. Hyacinthe, Quebec. As I mentioned earlier, this organ was installed in 1955 as part of the commemoration ceremonies of the bicentennial of the deportation of the Acadians. And we're going to hit a note here. I'm going to take you inside to see how that's producing that noise. But when I turn this way, what you actually see are these beautiful pipes, but only some of them are real. Most of them, as you go to the sides, to the wings, are actually dummies, just to give you an aesthetic. When you look inside and see some are made of wood, but most of them are unfinished metal. They don't have the aesthetic as beautiful brass pipes like this. So we'll take a look inside. So we're now in the room behind the organ where all the pipes live. This is only one of the rooms. There's a central room and there's a full room on either side full of these pipes. And you can see that some of them are merely centimeters in diameter, not even a centimeter in diameter, all the way to these large wooden pipes, large stovepipe sized diametered pipes. There are more than 5,000 pipes here to generate the sound. So this room, you can see, has unfinished metal pipes or the wooden pipes, but when you look up on the back side of those brass pipes that you'd see from the front, the central ones are actual working pipes, but the ones as you go towards the wings are actually dummies. It's for the aesthetic, for the congregation. So originally these would have had plywood all the way up, but as sort of an attempt at interpretation, they've converted some of these to plexiglass so you can actually see the individual pipes. And they are tuned, if you move them at all a little bit, it throws that particular pipe out of tune. So really an expansive, I would dare say, kilometers of pipe to generate the sound in this organ. So one of the other neat things about the Cassavant Frères organ is it really was the next generation, the first of the next generation of modern pipe organs. What used to happen is you would manually pump bellows to create the wind to create the sound. But this is one of the two. There are two motorized blowers that actually get turned on at the organ itself. And as you can see here, it actually says Cassavant Frères Limited, St. Hyacinthe, Quebec. So this was their next generation pipe organ. This, along with the bank of buttons that you could pick different sounds. You could literally play an entire orchestra on this thing. You could select multiples of these, dozens of buttons. And then select one or two or three as a preset program of as many buttons as you wanted. So if an organist found a particular sound that they wanted, they could engage multiple sounds with these buttons and then program it as one or two or three and have multiple programmable orchestrated sounds. It was the first one of its kind like that. So the whole building is quite a feat of ingenuity, engineering, design, throwback to honoring culture of the Acadians. But some of the things that you don't know, I'm going to go right here. So this is stone and there's mortar, and I'm able to reach out and touch that. But what's really cool is throughout the entire building, including way up here, all those rounded vaults like that look like individual stones. If they were out of reach and far enough out of sight that someone couldn't discern the difference, that's a painted line on concrete. There's no mortar there. So as a cost-saving measure, if any of those painted lines are outside of the reach or the direct scrutiny of a parishioner, it's actually concrete with painted lines, and that's throughout the whole building. The Interpretation Center, the museum that opened last year, MR21, does a fantastic job of interpreting the cathedral, including using modern technology and touchscreens to interpret things that happened in 1939 and before. 360-degree movie, interactive screens, that kind of thing. So a really good example of bringing history into the 21st century.